So it says a carpenter earns $12.30 an hour for a 40-hour week. All right, so we're going to start there. He earns $12.30 for a 40-hour week. His overtime pay is 1.5 times his base pay if he puts in 46 hours a week. How much is his weekly pay? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is figure out what his regular salary would be. So take out your calculator and multiply $12.30 times 40. See what you get. And you should get 492. Raise your hand if that's what you got. All right. But he worked more than 40 hours. He worked 46 hours. So for the remaining 6 hours, though, he gets paid more. So to figure out what his rate would be, because it's going to be more than $12.30, you would take $12.30 and multiply it by 1.5. So in your calculator, take $12.30 times 1.5. His overtime rate. So his overtime rate is $18.45. So every hour that he works more than 40, instead of getting paid $12.30, he will get paid $18.45. So how many hours more than 40 did he work in that week? 6. He worked 6 more hours, 6 hours more than 40. So I want you to take his overtime rate, which is $18.45. Go ahead and multiply that by 6. And you should get $110.70. So to find his check for that week, we're going to take his regular salary and add it to his overtime pay. So add those two numbers together, and that will tell you what his check would be for that week. And that should give you $602.70, which is A. So I wanted us to practice some more factoring cubes, which is why we have the handout. We're not going to do all of those. We're only going to do 3. So take out that handout that you just picked up. We're going to do a few of these together. I think about half of you all got the pattern yesterday, but I want to practice it one more day. And of course, we'll practice it tomorrow also. All right, so let's go ahead and look at, before we get started, down the side of your paper, you can either go to page 7 in your notes or you can do it again. Go ahead and list out your perfect cubes down the side. So remember, you're taking 1 times 1 times 1, 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times 3 times 3. We already did these on page 7 in your notes, so if you want to, you can just copy it from there, or you could do them again. So either go to page 7 in your notes and write them down, or just do them again, whichever way you prefer. So these are our perfect cubes. These are the numbers that we have to have in order for us to use the pattern for perfect cubes. So the first thing we have to do is figure out A and B. And then the pattern, so let's start off with that. So let's look at 8a cubed. What did I multiply 2 times to get to 8a cubed? So what number to the power of 3 is 8? 2. But because that's a cubed, we also know it has to be a 2a. So 2a is my a term. Then b is 1. So the pattern says, I'm going to write the pattern out. We have AB, and then it's A squared, AB, and B squared. So my A and my B, that's 2A and 1. And then now, for A squared, you're going to take 2A times 2A. And that's going to be the first number in the second parentheses. So 2 times 2 would be 4. And then we have 2a. So it would be 4a squared. The second number in our parentheses, the middle number, is what we get when we multiply the 2a and the 1 together. 2a times 1 is 2a. And then lastly, at the end, we take 1 times 1. And 1 times 1 would be 1. So now we have 3 signs in the middle that we have to fill in. We got to figure out what signs we have to put in the middle of these 3 terms. So to do that, we SOAP it. So we start off with the same sign. So the sign we started off with was addition. So we're going to stay with addition. So addition goes here. And then between the next 2 terms is the opposite of addition, which would be subtraction, minus, yep. And at the end is always positive. And that would be your factors. Any questions about how we work through that? All right, I'm going to do this out of order. We're going to skip all the way down to number 6. So the first thing we got to figure out is what did we multiply to get to 27? What number multiplied 3 times gave us 27? Show me with your fingers. What number? 3. And it would be an x, because it's x cubed. And then show me with your fingers, what number did I multiply 3 times to get to 125? All right, good. So let's go ahead and make our parentheses. We got a small one and we got a big one. So in the first parentheses, we put our 3x and our 5. In our second parentheses, we start off by multiplying 3x times 3x. And 3x times 3x, 9x squared. And then our next term is what we get when we take the 3x times 5. We multiply them together. And that gives you a 15x. And then our last term is what we get when we multiply 5 times 5. And that would be 25. So now we have our signs in the middle that we got to figure out what goes in these 3 spots. So this one also started off with addition. So we're going to put a plus sign first. And then it's the opposite. And then we end with always a plus. All right, any questions about how we did that? Thumbs up, sideways, down. How do we feel about this? Okay. All right, let's do one. Let's go back to question. Let's do question 3. So if we look here, notice that these two numbers are not perfect cubes. But do we have a GCF? Because we always start by looking for a GCF. What number can I take out of both 2 and 16? 2. So let's divide both of these by 2. In your homework, there's a couple questions. I believe it's number 3 and 9 that have a GCF. I'm not quite sure. But you always start by looking for a greatest common factor. When I take out my 2, I'm left with 1x cubed minus 8. Now, when you look at the list that you wrote down the right side of your paper, do you see these two numbers, 1 and 8? Are they perfect cubes? So that means that we can do our pattern. So what do we multiply 3 times to get to this? Just x. And what multiplies 3 times to give you 8? It's 2. All right, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to try to do this one on your own, because we haven't done one on our own yet. So see if you can do the pattern by yourself, and then we'll go through it together. All right, let's see how we did. So we got our 2 parentheses. I'm going to bring down my GCF and put that in front. And then I'll make my small parentheses and my big parentheses. So in the first parentheses, you should have an x and a 2. In the second parentheses, we're multiplying x times x, and that gave us x squared. And then we have 2 times x, which is 2x. And then 2 times 2, which would be 4. To fill in our numbers, we got 3 signs. To fill in our signs, there's 3 signs. So this time we started off with a subtraction. So because it's a minus sign here, we're going to put the same thing right here. So a minus sign will go first. Then it's the opposite of subtraction, which would be addition. And then we end with always a plus. Raise your hand if you had that. All right, let's do one more. Let's look at question 4, and then we'll go to our notes for today. So number 4 also has a GCF. What number goes into 24 and 81? 3. Thank you, Olivia. So we're going to divide both of these by 3. Go ahead, pick up your calculators and divide that by 3. So your A value should be 2x and your B value should be 3. Go ahead, take a few minutes and try to fill in your factors. All right, so we should have a 2x first, and then our 3. And then here, we have 2x times 2x, which is 4x squared. And then our next spot would be 2x times 3. What is 2x times 3? 6x. And then our last stop or spot would be 3 times 3, which is what? 9. All right, so we're going to SOAP it. We got to figure out our signs that go in these 3 spots. So we started off with addition, so we're going to start with the same sign. Then we go to the opposite, and we end with always a plus. All right, so now that I wanted to just kind of pause a little bit before we move on to the next thing, which is factoring 4 terms. So in your notes, take a minute and go to page 8 and fill in, that's kind of messy, fill in our blanks here. And this applies to 4 terms. How do we factor 4 terms? So again, this is for 4 terms. So there are 4 steps to factoring 4 terms. The first thing is to split it into 2 polynomials. And then after you split it into 2, we're going to find the GCF of both groups. So for our first factor, it's going to be the matching binomial. Actually, I should just be binomial, not binomials. So we're going to list out the matching binomial for the first factor. And the second factor is going to be from combining the GCF. So we'll do a couple more, and then you'll have the rest of the class period to work on your homework. And tomorrow, the entire class will be factoring grouping. So let's go ahead and look at this first one. So the first thing we're going to do is split this into 2 groups. So this is going to be my first group. This is my second group. So I got my green group, and I have my red group. So let's start off with the green group. The green group has x cubed minus x squared. So if I were to write that out, that means I have x minus xx. That's what's in my green group. And there's an invisible 1 right here. So what can I take out of both terms? Because I have 2 different terms. What's my GCF of both of these terms? What do they both have? Isaiah? X, how many x's though? 2, yeah. So let's go ahead and take out, I'm going to take out these 2. So that means I'm taking out my x squared. So I took them out. Now that x squared is on the outside. And I'm left with just x minus 1 on the inside. So now we're ready to look at our red group. So for my red group, I have 2 times x minus 1 times 2. What is the GCF of those 2 terms? What do they both have? A 2. So I'm going to take the 2 out. Bring out that 2. Wait, I meant to write that in blue. Hold on. And when I take out the 2, what do I have left? X minus 1. These 2 should always be the same. When we take out our greatest common factor, they should match. So now let's go ahead and write our factors. Our first factor is my GCFs that I took out. So in my first factor, it's going to be my x squared and the 2. They come together and they make a factor. They come together. And my second factor is that binomial that I had left, which is x minus 1. And that's how you factor 4 terms. All right, let's do another one. So again, the first thing we do is break it apart into groups. Then we take the GCFs out of each group. And then we form our factors. The GCF goes in one factor, and the leftover binomial goes in the second factor. Okay, let's look here. So again, I have my red group, and I have my green group. So I'm going to start off by 2p cubed means I have a 2 and I have 3 letter P's. Plus a 5 and 2 P's. That's my red group. So let's stop right there. What can I take out of both of those terms? I'm only looking at the red group right now. 2 P's, yeah. We can take out a p squared. We can take out 2 P's. So p squared will come out. So when that comes out, what do I have left over? 2, not just a 2 and a 5, 2 p plus 5 is left over. 2p plus 5. All right, now let's start looking at this green group. So the greatest factor that can go into 6 and 15 is 3. So I'm going to factor this down to 3 times 2 times p plus 3 times 5. All right, what is the GCF? What do both of those terms have that we can take out? A 3. They both have a 3. So I'm going to bring out that positive 3. And what's left over is 2p plus 5. Just like we had in the red group. These two groups should always match. If they don't match, that means we didn't take out the right thing. All right, so now we're ready to make our factors. Make your 2 parentheses. So in 1, I'm going to put my GCFs. So I took out a p squared and I took out a 3. So they come together and they form a factor. In my second group, what do you think I'm going to put? What was the binomial that I had left over? Both times. 2p plus 5. Any questions? Let's do another one. Math is repetition. We keep doing it until we memorize our steps so that we can apply it. All right, let's do the same thing here. Got my red group. So notice I started off with 4 terms. So let's look at the red group. And you don't have to list out the factors the way I'm doing it. If you recognize what the GCF is, then just do that. That's okay. So I'm going to write this out. 12 is 3 times 4. Then I have 3 A's. Minus 3 times... Oh, I meant to write that in red. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my color codes. 3 times 4. And then 3 A's minus 3 times 3 and 2 A's. All right. So now we're ready to take out our GCF. And Daniel, what do you think I could take out? 3a squared. I would agree. So we're going to take out 3a squared. So this comes out, and this comes out. So I'm left over with a 4, a minus 3. So 4a minus 3 is what I have left over. Okay, I want you to notice that this is already a match to my green group. So I still have to take something out though. And what's the only number I could take out that won't change it? What's the universal number that goes into everything? You can multiply it, you can divide it, and it won't change it. 1. So out of this group, I'm just taking out a 1. Okay, 1 goes into everything because we have to take out something. And because they already match, that tells me I'm just taking out a 1. And that green group is going to stay the same. So now we're ready to write our factors. My first factor is 3a squared plus 1. This is my GCFs right here. My second factor is 4a minus 3, and that would go there. Any questions? All right, we just got one more and then we're done for today. And you can use this time. Was anybody absent yesterday? Or y'all got homework too? All right, last one. Let's go ahead and do this one. And then we will finish here. So I have a 3 and I have 3 ends minus a 4 and 2 ends. So what do you think my GCF is? What can I take out of both of them?
1 n squared.
1 n squared or n squared, yep. So we're going to take out 2 n's. So that n squared is going to come out, which is going to leave me with 3n minus 4. All right, so we're not a match yet. This doesn't match. Oops. This is not a match here, so we have to take out something from the green group. So if I were to take that green group and factor it down, that would be 3 times 3 times n minus 3 times 4. What do both terms have that we could take out? What'd you say again? 3. So we're going to take out the 3, take out the 3. So a positive 3 is what we're taking out. And then I have 3n minus 4 left over again. So 3n minus 4 will go here. So now we just combine our factors. So my GCFs, they come together. And then the matching binomial that we have left over, that would be my second factor. And that would be it. Okay, homework 2. Can you write, I don't know if I gave you all a due date yesterday, but I did change it to Monday. So homework 2 is due on Monday now. Everyone should use the remaining time. We still have 14 minutes. So use this time. We should all be working on homework 2. I think most of you already turned in homework 1, but if you didn't turn that in, make sure you get that turned in.